Warriors, and welcome to this episode of the Love Your Life Show. I am so excited to bring you this conversation that I had with a licensed clinical social worker, Tami, who's also a yoga instructor and has written books and has a psychotherapy practice, because we really dig into things that are going to help you live your life you love. Initially, I was having the podcast be on anxiety and tools around how to help us feel anxiety, which is all great. And stick to the end because we dive into some fun stuff on attachment theory and also the different roles we played in our family. I didn't know it was going to be coming up, but it was like super fun to learn about. And I think you're going to love it too, because it helps us all as we're out there living a life we love. So join me in welcoming Tami. I will put her website underneath in the show notes so you can see it after you listen. She helps individuals, families, and couples with things like anxiety, depression, domestic violence, trauma, relationships, and empowerment. And she helps us a lot today too. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Yay, let's go. All right, listeners, we have a wonderful guest today. I've already told you a bit about Tami, and now here she is. Thank you so much, Tami, for coming on the Love Your Life show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we finally figured out how to get together and do this.
Yeah, you know what, Warriors? It was so funny when we first, like in the last 10 minutes of both of our lives, we tried to click on to get the recording link, and both of us were like emailing and it wasn't working. And it was just so funny that like two anxiety experts are coming on to have a talk about anxiety, and I felt my anxiety. I was like, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work? And then I was able to use some of the tools that Tami's going to teach us about today and sort of walk my brain back from like drama mode to like,
Oh my gosh.
so I'm so glad you're here to support my nervous system.
I love that because it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, I talk about anxiety relief all day long. I'm sure you do too, but when it lands in my own lap, I forget everything that I know and I
Yes.
just start in reactive mode and it never works out.
Yeah, it really, but it is, I guess it's that, it's the stuff that you talk about, and that like catching it in the moment and learning the tools. Like I've done enough work in the, like with my coach and with my, sort of regulating my nervous system, that I could sort of notice what was happening with me, where I was like, okay, like calm down, take a breath. This is a podcast recording. Like what happens, you're not like live on the Oprah show. Like what happens if you can't record right now? I did think this. I was like, well, I'll see if she can reschedule for later today. And then my like system just settled down. So I was able to then think and problem solve and send you a different Zoom link, and here we are. So can you give us a little background about how you got to where you are today, writing and speaking and helping with anxiety?
Well, if I never had anxiety, I probably wouldn't be here. So, I think that it's enough to where you experience it enough, and I sit here and talk to my clients enough, and I think it was having enough panic attacks to where I finally just said, Tami, enough.
Mm.
Like, one, practice what you preach, but two, figure out why and where this is coming from. And so, understanding, like looking back at my past, looking back at everything, how you grow up, attachment styles, things like that, everything kind of plays into it. And when you can understand, I mean, I fully believe you can't anticipate every single situation that's going to come around the corner. So I've found my own power in managing my anxiety symptoms. And if I can manage my symptoms, it doesn't matter what life throws at me because I have a different way of approaching it.
Okay, can you tell me a little more about that? Like, what does that look like you managing your symptoms?
Okay, so number one, you've got to have awareness. So being aware, can you hear my dog barking?
I can, but it's in the background. It's like a little,
Of,
oh,
I think I just got a package so at the front door. So yes, of course,
yeah.
naturally it happens right
Right.
now.
Right.
Okay, so having awareness, you can't change something if you're not aware of it.
Mm.
So having awareness of, I think something's going on in my body. Something is hitting me in my throat. And I always feel like your body, I don't know if you feel like this too, but your body is always talking to you. And
Mm,
so when you're hungry, your stomach growls. And when you're tired, you yawn. And when you're cold, you get goosebumps. Well, when you get nervous or worry, you get it somewhere in your body. And for me, it's a zinger in my stomach. And
mm,
it's just that like tightness, the butterflies, the sometimes I'll just feel like electricity is running through my body. And that's my first indicator of like, hello, like something's going on and you might want to pay attention.
mm. Well, and I guess if I can just stop for a second there for the listeners to just like what this looks like is what Tammy's learning, like what anxiety feels like in her body, and that it feels like a zinger in her stomach. And for me, I know the anxiety, I feel it more in my chest, and I will have a hard time catching my breath. I didn't learn that until I was in my mid to late 30s. And I think, and I would just offer to the listeners that it's possible listeners still don't know what anxiety feels like. That's part of emotional intelligence.
Ah,
That's learning the intelligence for our emotion, because when you were saying like when you're hungry, you're like you notice your body giving you symbols, but I signals. But I think a lot of us, if we had trauma in our past, which they say 65% of adults had, you disconnect from your body. So that was a lot of my body cues might not have been like I just, in order for my own protection and safety, I was not paying attention to my body. And so then sort of coming back in and be like, oh my gosh, what is my body trying to tell me? And it didn't feel safe. It was like,
yeah,
oh my God, if I stop and pay attention to how I feel, well, then I'm going down this deep, dark hole. So it
yeah,
really is in having some of these experiences with, probably people like you or me in a session where it feels safe to feel the feeling, to see that you're not gonna spiral out. Like it's okay. It's just a little zinger in your stomach. Or for me, it's like that, like catching of my breath.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your body shows up to take care of you. Your mind shows up to take care of you. I mean, ultimately, you think your mind is working against you, but it's actually protecting you and working with you, but it only knows what it knows and it only
Yeah.
knows what's reinforced by you. So I think, and just my own realization when I'm like, oh my God, Tammy, you're the one creating your own anxiety. So you're the one who's able to get rid of it,
Mm,
or to manage it or to like tame it down or something.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, and I was just thinking with my dogs going crazy and I'm trying to talk to you and then I'm hearing you talk and involuntarily I took a big inhale and a big exhale and I
mm,
saw that and I felt it and I thought, okay, I just settled in a little bit.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you pay attention, there's so much going on internally that's really pretty cool.
Yeah. And I guess it's that like, um, it's just slowing it down. Like sometimes I wish I could live life at like half a speed. Like, and see,
Mm.
like how we could listen to podcasts at like one or one and a half, like one and a half or two, which listeners like that just strikes your nervous system. But like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could just go through life and like turn it down to half the speed, then I can be like, oh, I notice I'm having a hard time catching my breath as my teenager walks in the room before I explode and, like, or have so it's like, oh, like that would have been nice to take that deep inhale and exhale. And I guess what I have found is in the practicing of it, it does sort of slow down. Like it feels slower. So that even before I got on this call, I was able to be like, I felt that sort of rising in me, like, oh no, what do we do? And it was like, nothing. You're totally fine here. You're safe. This is not, you're not being chased by a tiger. Let's slow it down.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing from you is first step is really like, what does anxiety feel like in your body? Like get
Mhm.
used to that from your, like as the student of yourself, because Tammy's
Mhm.
anxiety feels different than it does in Susie's body. And so the listener might have a different experience. And
Yeah.
just what are those sort of like the telltale signs? I don't, is that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally, absolutely. And I think that it's kind of a scary emotion, so people don't want to sit with it. And
yeah.
it's like, oh, hurry, get it off my plate, get it out. Let me distract myself. Let me get busy in work, or let me get, numb it with drugs and alcohol. I
Mm,
don't like this. Why would I
yeah.
want to sit in it? It feels
Mm,
so icky. And I try to help people look at it like, you know what? it's just an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is.
It's
Just
just a
like,
sensation in your body. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just like happiness or just like excitement or just like jealousy or guilt or all. And you know how you can absolutely know it's just an emotion that can come and go like that is turn on some music. You know,
Mm.
you can have like a sad song and you're like, whoa, and then you can have a happy song the very next song and you're like kind of dancing around. And
Yeah.
sometimes I look at myself when that happens, I'm like, God, like you're all over the place, but
Right.
it's
Like a roller
actually
coaster.
they're just emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, and I think that's really helpful to neutralize it. Just to sort of name it. You know, I say name it to tame it. I did not make that up, but like, the sort of
I
name it like,
love
oh,
that.
anxiety is present. And then, to not have this fear of like, oh my gosh, this is going to be massive. It's going to take me down
Yeah.
versus like, no, the way we get through it is allowing it in and then it will process faster versus resisting and it persists, it persists.
I actually named mine. Her name's Marge.
Okay, I love that. Just like Marge is in
And
the house today.
Marge is in the absolutely Marge is
Yeah.
knocking on the door. And sometimes I'll like say, okay, Marge is here. Do I need Marge right now? Because sometimes you do.
Yes.
Sometimes you're in a bad situation. Sometimes you need anxiety to kick you in the butt and get things done. Sometimes you need anxiety to, what it's not always a bad feeling. So, and then other
Yeah.
times I have to sit back and do an assessment and say, I'm okay. I'm in my house. I got a roof. I've
Yeah.
got my kids are safe. My dogs are fine. It's okay. Like Marge, thanks so much for showing up, but I don't need you right now.
Yeah, so I think that's what I'm hearing with you when you're saying like you like addressing the symptoms. So first,
Yeah.
looking at like it's here, notice it. Like notice when you have that fluttering in your stomach or whatever the listener's cue is, and then to allow it, to let it be, to take some breaths, to, maybe give yourself some self-soothing hugs or to, just to not be anxious about our anxiety. It's coming up for me. Not like, oh my gosh, okay, I need to go drink a glass of wine or I can't have this.
Right.
I'm often saying like the better we get at feeling uncomfortable emotions, the better our life gets. Because it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, look at that. I'm feeling a little anxious today. Okay, I'm gonna take some breaths. It's not like, oh my God, my day's ruined. The ship is going down. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you speak a little more about how us feeling anxious or us resisting our anxiety can be harmful or is not the greatest?
Yeah, I think that it's just kind of a setback, it can keep you from really facing things that you need to pay attention to. And so I think that by avoiding things is almost like throwing in gasoline on an anxiety fire. Like avoiding is the worst thing to do for anxiety.
Mm,
Because it's not like it goes away. And
yeah.
so I think that I really do encourage people to just kind of sit with it and then address it, start picking it
Mm,
apart. What is going on? Where are your thoughts taking you? What is this? And to your question earlier, maybe this is about past situations, past
mm-hmm,
experiences, how you grew up. So I think that there's, fear, anxiety is really about two things. It's not having a sense of control over your environment and then your cognitive process, the what ifs and the worst case scenarios. And when you break it down, to me, anyways, that's kind of what anxiety is. And
mm,
it's all based on fantasy because it hasn't happened yet. And it's all based on fear. And
mm,
so when you start to really pick it apart and ask yourself, what am I so nervous about right now? What am I so afraid of right now? All of a sudden you're actually working with something instead of
mm,
just like these imagination and thoughts and like just yeah, now
mm.
you've got something tangible that you can actually do something with.
Mm. I really like that, and I really I like how you named it Marge too, because it just it's separate. It like gives you something to work with, as you said. Like it separates yourself from it, and it's like, okay, like what am I really like? What are you really freaking out about here, Marge? And is this a real danger that I need to pay
Hmm.
attention do. Like I am in a dark alley and there's a man in a hoodie that's coming towards me. Like, okay.
Thanks,
Or,
Marge.
right, like, thanks, Marge. I'm gonna start running now, or or did I just see or think something or smell something or that's maybe reminding me of my past, and so I'm feeling a little unsafe there, and I can just return myself to the present and be like, that's not what's happening now. That was your safety. You're an adult, you're in charge here. That comes up for me often in relationships. Like my husband will say something, my second husband, and I will notice my system has this big reaction, like, ah, and I just have to be like, what is going on? Oh, you're having this because this is reminding you of your past when you felt out of control, mentioning your two things, the out of control and the fear. And that's not now. Like, this is a safe relationship. This is okay, Susie. And coming back to present, which I guess that's the trick for everything, like to just be right here, right now. Like, what are we afraid of? I remember Martha Beck just recently was talking about something politics. She had watched something on the news and she was spinning out, and she just was finding, she found her signs, and she was breathing, shallow, and she just went into her room and tried to meditate, and her brain was like, you're in danger, you're in danger, and she was like, really? She's like, I'm sitting in my house in my like comfy bed, like I'm not in danger right now. Like, bring it back right here, right now. Like and to just settle the body in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Present.
was I was at the grocery store a while ago, a month ago or whatever, and I had all of that going. I had just finished watching, like, I don't know, an hour of TikTok and just all kinds of new stuff and everything you're not supposed to do. And I was like, I need to go to the grocery store. Well, I needed happened to be eggs at the time. And I was like, you know what? I get to choose which eggs I want. I get to choose, do I want these or do I want those or do I want these and do I want 64 or do I want 12 or do I want six? I got to choose. And I thought, you know what? I need toothpaste. I get to choose which toothpaste I'm going to get. And it was such a simple thing, but in my brain, it was like, I have control, you know?
Yeah.
And and I think it's just like figuring out, what do I actually have control over versus no matter what, I can't control this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that as an exercise. Maybe it'll be helpful for your listeners, but I have people get a piece of paper and I fold it in half. And on one side, you write down everything that you feel completely out of control over. Like, no matter what, I don't have control over this stuff. And then take one of those, just one at a time, and swing it over to the other side of, here's what I actually have control over.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you could take, like, maybe COVID, use that as an example. And so when you move it over, what you have control over is, I have control over wearing a mask or keeping my distance or asking people, how are you feeling? Or saying,
Wash
you know
my
what, I'm not feeling so great. Wash my hand. Yeah.
Mhm.
All those things that we actually had control over, but without realizing it and really being present with what you have control over, this other stuff can suck you in like a magnet and it just gets you spinning. And over here, it's grounding you.
Mm. I really like that. I've used that before in parenting and with my kids,
Ah,
like when I'm nervous
yeah.
about something with them and it's feeling very out of control, to think, like, say it's a college choice and it's feeling,
Hmm.
maybe it's feeling out of control, or that it shouldn't be in your control. Like, it should be up to
Yeah.
your kid,
Or if it's
like
every day
you're
being a
feeling the
parent
urge to
of a kid.
control something that shouldn't be yours. And so then I've looked at what I can control, and it's like, okay, I can control, saying supportive words to this child. I can control to making sure that he's keeping his, well, like bedtime, sleep, getting the sleep that he needs, and like what, and just getting out of that control, non-control. And then I guess I also look with that is like, what am I really afraid of?
Yeah.
That, like,
Yeah.
what you were saying earlier, that like spinning in fantasy land, we actually often don't, like, we give it just enough detail to be scary, but we don't give it enough detail to like get a grasp on it. It's like, what am I,
Mm.
like, okay, what if my son does choose this school that I think is not the right one for him? Then what? Then what? Then what?
Hmm.
Then okay, maybe he's like it's it's never like I mean, it's rarely, then he's going to be like dead in a ditch on the side of the road, which is where our brain goes. Like, that's what our brain is telling us when he's like,
In a nanosecond.
like we're immediately in that like dead in the ditch, or like, they're in a white van somewhere, it's like, wait, brain, that doesn't even make sense. And so I think what I hope listeners are hearing from both of us is, while it might feel scary, like turning the spotlight to look at it actually makes it less scary. It's like, what
Mm.
is it that we're really afraid of if son X chooses this university, or if this, COVID comes into our house, or like, what is it and what do we do with that? Or what do we have an upcoming trip, and like, what are the things we can control? What are the things we can't control? What are we afraid of really? And then walking that out might be,
I love that. That's so, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so I would love to pivot a little here, because you talk about anxiety and confidence. And I would love to
Mm.
know about how those two are related.
Okay. Yeah, I think that they are related like a teeter-totter.
Mm,
So and think about when your confidence is high, when you feel really good about what you're doing, you know what's going on, you're on top of it, whatever. Confidence is high, your anxiety is low. You
mm,
don't have a whole lot of anxiety. But as soon as that anxiety comes up, your confidence tanks.
mm,
And, think of something like if someone asked you, okay, Susie, I need you to go present in front of 500 people and I want you to talk about, I don't know, the neurobiology of the blah, blah, blah
oh
of
my God,
whales
yeah.
or something.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay, you're on. And you
yeah.
might go, oh my God, I have no idea. But if somebody said, okay, Susie, I want you to present about anxiety and how it can be detrimental and how it can help people and give us like one or two tips of what to do, your confidence would be, you're like, cool, where do I go? Give me the mic.
Yeah.
So when you're confident, your anxiety is low, but as confidence creeps in, it absolutely makes you second guess yourself.
Mm,
All your what ifs come in, all your worst case scenarios come in. And you stop trusting your gut. You stop
mhm.
actually listening to yourself because you're in reactive mode. And so yeah, so I think that something that I try to work on also is like helping people become more confident because their anxiety is automatically going to drop.
Mm. Yeah, I think listeners are familiar with me talking about faith over fear parenting,
Mm.
or like, because if we're feeling like, take that example I had with my son and college, and like, oh my gosh, are they going to choose the right school? Sometimes at the base of that is fear and lack of confidence in my own parenting. Like, what am I making it mean? Like, that
Mhm.
I need to get involved because that's what a good mom does. And versus if I'm feeling like, okay, a good mom steps back, I'm doing the right thing, I let him make his choice, I'm not abandoning him. That's all that confidence again. And it's
Yeah.
really that, like, what does it feel, where are actions coming from? Are they coming from that faith that, like, no, I'm doing the right thing, this is fine, or fear of, I'm a bad mom, or giving the talk? It's like, okay, if I get up there and give a talk and I have sort of faith with myself and confidence, where I'm like, yeah, I don't know what this topic is about, but that's fine because they know I don't know. So I'm just going to get up and do my best, and we'll see. And that's, I'm going to do a lot better than if I'm like, oh my gosh, they think I'm going to be an extra expert on neurobiological, whatever. Um, so I really appreciate that. And just that returning to self again, which is
Mhm.
where a lot of your work with learning about your past comes in. Because I think that's
Mm.
where, the listeners of this show, the Love Your Life show, and then the students in the Love Your Life school do a lot of, I mean, they clearly take self-development as I think is wonderful, for like, it's their
Mhm.
job to learn about themselves and learn about what makes them tick and why they're reactive in this way, what anxiety feels like in their body. And then
Mhm.
with that is, how is our past, it's sort of triggering us in our present, and learning that sort of stuff, I guess I would argue, gives you confidence. Like, when I
Mhm.
know that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm triggered about that with my husband because it's hard for me to ask for my needs to be met, I feel a lot less
Mhm.
anxious about it. It just is like, oh, this is a skill I can work on. Gives me some
Yeah.
to deal
And
with.
that's your
No,
tangible.
yeah,
Now I
cool.
yeah, yeah. Now you have something to work with. And so, I do a lot with helping people understand what their roles are growing up in their family. So the mascot, the hero, the enabler, scapegoat and lost child, those five family roles, and understanding what your role was growing up. And these roles tend to come out when there was conflict in the family. So when there's conflict in the family, someone has to like, look at how great I am and let's distract from the chaos in the family. Or, well, it's all this kid's fault, but actually the whole family is a disaster. Or, so we all have these roles that we grew up with. And you never forget the roles. So later on in life, you might be in a situation and you flip into the enabler, or you flip
Mm.
into, let's just make it funny, let's just avoid the feelings,
Mm.
whatever it is. And then I help people try to understand what their attachment style is. And your attachment style is really based on your caregiver, and what space they were in and how they were available to show up, get your needs met. And I mean, I don't know anyone who made it through attachment without any kind of hiccups, big hiccups, little hiccups, disasters, no one's perfect. So I was just talking to a client today. She's like, well, I didn't grow up with any like abandonment or rejection. Like it was fine. And I said, it could be something as small as your parents going out on a date and leaving you with a babysitter,
Yeah.
or your parents, like your mom, your dad, whoever, put you in a cart and at the grocery store, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot something. I'm going to run around the corner and grab it and come right back."
There's something so
It
innocent. Yeah.
Something so little, and
Hmm.
it's okay. Like that is what's supposed to happen, because if nothing bad ever happened to you, you're either living in a bubble or you're lying to yourself,
Yeah.
or both.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
yeah,
think
so
right there,
yeah.
I love that's also where we're like, let the anxiety be there and allow it. Let the
Uh-huh.
like the whatever, the non-attachments from like the little injuries from childhood be there. Like instead of being like in this blame, like if I admit that maybe I
Mm-hmm.
had an insecure attachment, then I'm blaming my mom. It's like, no, everyone had something. So I just find like if we
Mm-hmm.
look for more like what that thing is. Like take your parents out of
Mm-hmm.
it. Every single parent
Yeah.
is doing the best they can. Like I have not met a parent that's like, I want to screw up my kids. And
Yeah.
yet, like I know I raised three boys. They all take in different based on their perception of whether I left the shopping cart too long or too short or wasn't there, and it's that. So if we can sit here and be like, what is it? Like
Mm-hmm.
well, how did my past impact my attachment style is helpful? And then can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
your attachment style?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you're spot on. And yeah, I'm a boy mom too. I've got two boys too. And it's best job of my entire life, probably the most terrifying job of my entire life
Mhm.
also.
Yeah.
And you just want it to be so perfect, but it just perfection doesn't exist. And so looking back as an adult, um, you have to depersonalize it,
Mhm.
and even if your parent, like, let's go on the extreme of abusive or whatever, there was still something going on with that parent, that they
Mhm.
had some pretty huge struggles and demons and
Oh,
unresolved
for sure.
stuff. And you, as an innocent kid being born into the situation that you were born into, it had nothing to do with you. In fact,
No.
this parent was probably like this before you even came into the world.
Mhm.
And so I think that there's so much of like, oh, well, they did this to me and my parent did this to me. Well, they're not doing it to you. You happen to be the person. And now you get to decide, how do I use these in my adult life? How do I use these experiences to learn from and to grow from?
Mhm.
And maybe they were a good example of what to do with your own kids, and maybe they were a good example of what not to do with your own kids. But
Yeah.
but you take your own power back,
I
because
love that. It's like, yes, they did. Like, we're
yeah,
not debating that. And now what? It's that
yeah,
you're not those kids
yes,
anymore. Yeah.
yes. And maybe they weren't around because they were working 15 jobs to try to
Mhm.
make sure that you had food on the table,
Mhm.
like, oh, my parents neglected me and da da da. Well, no, they were probably working their asses off trying to make sure that you were okay.
Yeah, it's
So,
both. It's like, and they
yeah.
did, like, and you
Hmm.
felt neglected. It's like, and that's
Hmm.
that's fair. So what do we do with that now? Like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, when you said your second husband, and I have a second husband also, I was just thinking we should have like a second husbands club. or a second wives club or something, because it's true. You take all your stuff with you,
Yeah.
and who does it come out on? The person who can hurt you the most, who's naturally the one who's closest to you.
Mhm.
So the defenses come up and the defense mechanisms come up. And if you don't manage your stuff from the past, it's going to come out. And I am just as guilty of that, but you got to catch it. And that
Well,
comes
and I
back,
guess,
that's full circle to awareness.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. And I think since we're talking about anxiety too, I don't want people to be like, oh my God, I have so much. I have to dig into the past and like it's so
Yeah.
big because it's not. Like for me, it's just
Right.
these little, it's almost like little sips. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. And the two things you mentioned, like the avoidant style, like your attachment style, I'm sorry, like, am I avoidant? Am I anxious? I am a mixture of both, or, and just learning these things, then you can go into your conversation with your second husband or your new friend or your sister and be like, oh, I'm triggered because XYZ. It just, they can be very small steps. Can you real quick
Very
go back
small.
over those five um, family? You said the scapegoat. I've heard of them before, but I didn't have
Yep.
them. Like the
There's
enabler.
the family hero, and that's the one that's just like everything's great. Look how wonderful I am. That's your high achiever, your perfectionist, your straight A
Golden
student, your
child.
star of yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the mascot, and the mascot is the one that like just wants everything to be light and fluffy, and let's just like skip over it, and everything's fun, and let's make a joke.
Mhm.
The enabler is the one who is just people pleasing, wants everyone to be okay, keeps all the family secrets, feels a ton of
Mhm.
pressure to make sure everyone's okay, likely avoids their own needs, typically ends up in codependent type relationships, can if it's unchecked. And then the scapegoat is the one who gets the blame for everything. And maybe they're acting out, maybe they're the rebel of the family, maybe they're the one who does get in trouble, but no one looks at why they're getting in trouble. It's because there's all this fighting and argument, stuff going on at home. And so they just act out because they're kids and they don't have good coping mechanisms. And
Mhm.
then there's the lost child is the last one, and that's the one that just kind of skips under the radar, just slips out the back door, just like leave me alone. I want to isolate. I don't want anything to do with you guys. So and you're not going to change the role that and it can shift. Like
Mhm.
sometimes, in my family, I was the enabler person, and then I was the hero person, and then I was
Mhm.
back to the enabler person. So depending on like
That's what
which
I was
what's
thinking, like
going on.
maybe a
Yeah.
couple of both. Like I definitely can see myself
Yep.
as the golden child and the enabler. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And sometimes that, and so where kind of where I originally was going with it when I had written my book was around who you are growing up is who you're likely to be attracted to. And I was trying to work with people to not get into the same relationship over and over and over again. But as
Very
it's kind
helpful.
of evolved, yeah, yeah, as it's evolved, you really, it has to do with any relationship, your neighbor, your person who's sacking your groceries, your boss, your coworkers, your family members. Because again, going back to your point, if you don't know what you need to kind of work on and have the awareness about, you're going to keep showing up in your life
Mhm.
with your same stuff. And so, yeah, so where in originally it was whatever family role you have is likely who you're attracted to,
Mhm.
which is because then you get to serve your role and you get to play
Right.
out what's known and what's comfortable, even
Mhm.
though it might not be healthy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that like if I'm thinking of the enabler myself, like I know that's it's interesting. I think I only had a family view of like three of them, but so bringing in this enabler, I knew I was the golden child, but that I definitely was the enabler also. And so then I went into a relationship where I could continue to be in that codependent pattern of being the rescuer, and then as you say, that can show up in other relationships, that when I am not at my best, I will be more of that with my children. Like as a
Mhm.
parent, I'll be more in that, my kids are older, and so they do, like, it's not about me caring for them, it's about me over functioning, so they under function. Or, so
Mhm.
for listeners to sort of be thinking of how these past things that we learned to get through in our family, like how are they now showing up in your life now is a wonderfully
Mhm.
reflective question, because all we're doing here is learning about ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
our relationship,
Yeah.
like the most important relationship, the one we're going to have forever, is the one we have with ourselves. Like, we will
Yeah.
always have that relationship with ourselves. So learn what anxiety feels like, how you can calm your
Yeah.
nervous system when you're feeling anxious. Learn what are your attachment style, like where do you sort of tend, what are your triggers? I don't think it
Yeah.
has to be as scary as we think, like, oh my God, now I have to dig into my past. It's like, no, let's just like sort of like we're getting together, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, look at that. There's my enabler. Or I think I was the lost child, or whatever's coming up.
Yeah.
In a
And I so
curious.
appreciate you like pulling that back because it does. Maybe your listeners listening to that. I even felt it. I'm, just like oh, this is so much,
Yeah.
and getting back to like it's okay. You'll have these dips and these highs and lows, and that's kind of what life is all about. There's just
Yeah.
waves.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it becomes heavy, it just is a signal, again, an awareness, a sign to say, hey, it's okay, just pull back a little bit.
Yeah,
Don't
that's what I was
shut the
gonna say.
book
Like, you don't have
completely.
to do it all right now. Like, fine.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're like, oh my God, there are family types too. It's like, just put that on pause. Put that on the calendar for 2026. Like, like you don't have
Just
to
do
do it
some
all.
breathing. Just do
Right.
some
Like, you
breathing.
don't have to
Yeah.
do it all right now.
Yeah.
So I really
And
appreciate that. And I appreciate it. It comes back to what you were talking about before, just, noticing, like right now, if they're feeling the heaviness, or if they're feeling the excitement, like, oh yeah, I get to dig into family, like, great.
ugh.
That feeling is telling you something. So let it be there, pay attention, nurture yourself. Like I often say, like, name it, nurture
Mhm.
it, just sort
Oh,
of that
yeah.
turn towards
Mm-hmm.
self, like you're your mom, like how would that feel?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, follow up with Tami, because Tami's awesome. So where can they find more about you? Or you've given them so much today in this
Oh
episode.
yeah. The probably the best way to find me is through my website. It's healthyhealing.net. And all my contact information, my email, my phone number is on there. And yeah, I work with people on Zoom, and I'm all remote, so phone and Zoom sessions, so it doesn't really matter where you are to do any kind of coaching type work. So yeah.
Yeah, I will put, so listeners, when you're looking at the show, if you just go below there'll be that link will be in purple, so they can just click right on
Oh,
it
thank
and get
you.
all the information and share with Tami how helpful this has been. Because I really, it just feels calming. Like, I think the main message is anxiety happens. It is here. It's just
Mhm.
it's a feeling that we feel, like getting hungry, and we don't have to be anxious about our anxiety. It's more just like,
Yes.
okay, it's here. Wow, I have a headache. We're not like, oh, headache. It's like, we can manage it. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on today and helping all of us.
You are
Yeah.
welcome. Thank you so much for having me.